to a college student and more comfortable with himself, while Romita Sr. made functional decisions on how he dressed. For example, he had Peter Parker dress in long-sleeve turtleneck sweaters because he reasoned he could cover up his costume underneath. Romita's settings and backgrounds also became more realistic, with cracked sidewalks and trash in the street. Other classic characters that would debut during John Romita Sr.'s run was the Rhino in issue number 41 in October of 1966, the Shocker in number 46 in March of 1967, and the Kingpin in issue number 50 in June of 1967, who Romita loved drawing along with his wife Vanessa. Of interesting note, the iconic Amazing Spider-Man number 50 was a last-minute change, with the original used for interior art of Peter Parker leaving his Spider-Man suit in the garbage, which would be referenced in the 2004 Spider-Man 2 movie. The stories also became more topical, addressing the Vietnam War, political protest, and student activism. Due to Romita's success in Amazing Spider-Man, he became Marvel's de facto art director, constantly called up to help with art on all the other books. When Martin Goodman, the founder and owner of Marvel Comics, asked what John Romita Sr. did at Marvel, he replied, "Everything." As a result, he was taken off of Amazing Spider-Man for some periods, only able to provide covers, while artists like John Buscema took over the interior pencils, such as when John Buscema ran the comic for issues number 76 to 81 from September of 1969 to February of 1970. Romita will eventually return for a brief stint from issues number 105 to 115 and issue number 119, February to December of 1972 and April of 1974, before pulling back again, only providing the occasional inking and cover till issue number 168 of May of 1977. Romita did provide one more important contribution to Spider-Man mythos during this, when he suggested to writer Jerry Conway that he have Spider-Man Peter Parker's girlfriend Gwen Stacy die at the hands of the Green Goblin, which Conway and artist Gil Kane did in the classic Amazing Spider-Man number 121 on June of 1973, arguably one of the most iconic moments in comic book history. All in all, John Romita Sr. provided 50 covers, 56 books of interior art, along with 4 annuals, helping to redefine the character and making him even more popular, along with Marvel's highest-selling book. While Steve Ditko is rightly considered the first artist of Spider-Man and his co-creator, Romita is a close second by any measure, building on the foundation to brilliant effect. One work on Spider-Man that John Romita Sr. was disappointed in was the black and white Spectacular Spider-Man magazine, published in July of 1978, but not for the book itself. Attempting to follow the work of black and white comics innovated by Warren Publishing, this magazine was at 35 cents an issue at a time when comics were 12 cents, and in a magazine format, thus operating outside the CCA and could tell more adult stories. The first issue featured a 52-page story written by Stan Lee and penciled by John Romita Sr. called Lo the Monster, along with a 10-page origin story by Lee and his brother Larry Lieber. It sold well and was followed by a second issue with a story by Lee and Romita called The Goblin Lives, this time with interior color art that also sold well, along with promoting the next issue stories, The Mystery of the TV Terror. Unfortunately, Martin Goodman, the founder and owner of Marvel, didn't have faith in it and had the magazine canceled. The magazine stories would be reprinted in the regular Spider-Man comics, while the TV Terror's costume was readapted for the villain the Prowler, making his first appearance in Amazing Spider-Man number 78 in November of 1969. Romita felt Martin Goodman didn't understand the business and nearly shut down their iconic drug issues in Amazing Spider-Man number 96 to 98, May and July of 1971, which Lee wrote, Gil Kane penciled, and John Romita Sr. inked. Despite having the backing of the Department of Health, who wanted Marvel to publish an anti-drug story, Goodman was afraid of going against the CCA, who wouldn't approve the story's content. Lee convinced Goodman to publish the story anyway without cold approval, and the rest is history, leading to the CCA relaxing its standards for the first time in 17 years, ultimately ending decades later. However, this is just one more example of Goodman not understanding the comic book business to Romita, and as a result, he never worked for Martin Goodman's Atlas, despite the offer of copyright and royalties, as he didn't trust them. It was a smart call, as Atlas would collapse within a year of launching in 1974. After Jack Kirby left Marvel in Fantastic Four in 1970, Stan Lee put Romita onto the comic, literally moving him from Marvel's number 1 selling book to its number 2, while Gil Kane took over as Amazing Spider-Man. Of interesting note, Romita claimed that Jack Kirby also asked him to come with him to DC to help on his books, but turned it down, much of it due to his wife Virginia, stating he would just turn into a Kirby clone. Romita found himself back on Spider-Man, though, as around the same time, he and Stan Lee started working on creating a Spider-Man strip for the newspapers, going so far as to create 2 weeks' worth of dailies. They delivered them to Chip Goodman, Martin Goodman's son, in 1972, only to realize he never opened the envelope when he left. It would be years before they were able to get that strip off the ground. Till then, Romita only got busier at Marvel. John Romita Sr. was made art director at Marvel, helping design such characters as Brother Voodoo, Luke Cage, The Punisher, Tiger, Bullseye, and Wolverine. He also worked on Marvel's black and white magazines, The Savage Tales, where he created the Femizons. Romita revamped the Black Widow's look, basing it on the classic Miss Fury character, one of the comics' first female superheroes, and is now the one used today, including how she's portrayed in the recent live-action MCU movies by Scarlett Johansson. He also gave Submariner his black costume to boost sales, though that his comic would still be canceled. Soon, Romita was Marvel's fix-it guy for all their art, as other artists had helped him out before. For example, it was Marie Severin who pointed out his buildings were too clean with no fades or cracks. Severin also reportedly got John Romita Jr., his son and my personal favorite comic book artist, started at Marvel. As an artist, Romita also tried to glamorize everything, including Doctor Doom, but he also kept the costumes functional. For example, the Shocker's costume had padding to absorb shockwaves, while the Punisher had an efficient military uniform. He also gave Dr. Octopus goggles and muscles, though he still retained his classic stomach pouch. When Jack Kirby returned to Marvel, John Romita Sr. inked his cover of Captain America number 193 on January of 1976. Of interesting note, the cover was meant to be in 3D, which is why the fist looks out of proportion with the rest of Cap's body. He continued to be Marvel's top artist, even when John Buscema came aboard, as every time he got a raise, so did Romita, as they essentially established Marvel's look over the next decade. Plus, he finally got a chance to do that Spider-Man strip. On January 3rd, 1977, the Amazing Spider-Man strip finally debuted, along with a number of new strips from Marvel, such as The Hulk, Conan, and Howard the Duck. Stan Lee was the writer and John Romita Sr. the artist, with the first storyline featuring Doctor Doom coming to New York to speak to the United Nations. Romita promised to stay on the strip as long as it kept growing, which it did for 4 years straight, before it finally plateauing. Romita believed the strip wouldn't last long afterwards. Ironically, it was only canceled last year in 2019. His wife, Virginia, also started to work at Marvel during this time, helping make and keep schedules, essentially becoming the traffic manager, as Romita described her. She also developed a reputation for wanting to keep the office clean, including spraying deodorant around one time when artists came in smelling too bad from late nights out, including one unnamed writer who refused to shower for days. One fun job Romita Sr. got at Marvel was working for the Beatles, which was prompted when he drew a picture of Paul McCartney in the Titanium Man's armor. This got him a meeting with him and his wife, Linda, who had Romita create his comics based on the stripes a Banshee was on. All this infuriated John Verpoten, Marvel's production manager and also a Beatles fanatic. It hurt even more that Romita wasn't and preferred Irving Berlin, even calling the Beatles phonies. When Linda McCartney sent Romita Sr. a Christmas gift of photos in a white cushioned cover, it disappeared and Romita hoped Verpoten stole it as he felt bad about losing it. When Jim Shooter was made editor-in-chief, Romita generally thought he was good at his job, especially in balancing numerous tasks. However, he blamed Secret Wars in 1984 for his eventual downfall, as his success went to Shooter's head, leading him to make poor decisions afterwards. It was Shooter that gave the nickname Romita's Raiders to the many artists he mentored at Marvel. Romita continued to work for Marvel throughout the 1980s and 90s, from inking the first appearance of Monica Rambeau and Captain Marvel in the Amazing Spider-Man Annual number 16 in 1982, to the 9-page I Remember Gwen in Amazing Spider-Man number 365 in August of 1992, as part of Spider-Man's 30th anniversary. However, during this time, Romita got to witness the Marvel look he and John Buscema helped establish be rebelled against by a new crop of artists, such as Todd McFarlane and Rob Liefeld. John Romita Sr. felt personally responsible for getting Todd McFarlane on The Amazing Spider-Man, as he complained how he drew the Hulk, saying his face was too scrunched up, thus prompting the move. Though he didn't like his Spider-Man either, he understood McFarlane had to draw him his own way, similar to how Romita had to following Steve Ditko. Romita would be critical of McFarlane, Jim Lee, and other artists who found in Image Comics, calling their comics filled with impressive shots of people but looked like posed models with no human interaction, thus lacking basic storytelling. Something many of them will eventually learn. As for Romita, he started to see his recognition for his long and brilliant career, receiving the Impact Award in 1979 and was inducted to the Will Eisner Hall of Fame in 2002. On July 27, 2007, one of his Spider-Man images, along with a Hulk image by Rich Buckler, penciled and he inked were used for commemorative stamps among the Marvel superheroes by the U.S. Post Office. While Romita's art career started to slow down, he continues to play a crucial role in the medium, serving as the distributive committee for the Hero Initiative, the charity that helps raise money for past comic book creators who have fallen in hard times. John Romita would work at Marvel until March 30th, 1996, penciling and inking till the end. Of all his works, he was most proud of the Spidey Super Stories, which was Marvel's comic tie-in to the live-action Spider-Man skits in the Electric Company PBS show in the 1970s, which counts as Spider-Man's first official live-action debut, along with being narrated by Morgan Freeman. He still does the occasional piece, such as variant covers for Amazing Spider-Man. However, the Romita who makes a name now is his son, John Romita Jr., who himself has had acclaimed runs on The Amazing Spider-Man, along with being the co-creator of the cult hit Kick-Ass. Plus, he remains my personal favorite comic book artist. As for Romita Sr., he is 90 years old, still living with his wife Virginia, and a true living legend, if ever there was one in the comic book industry. I would like to close out this episode with one of my favorite stories about John Romita Sr. that I heard on Fanboy Radio, a chief influence for this podcast, in which the hosts were at San Diego Comic-Con eating at a local restaurant who had one of their walls painted white so to encourage many of the visiting comic book artists to draw on it. Sure enough, John Romita Sr. entered with his son John Jr. and artist Billy Tan and all agreed to draw on the wall. Tan went first, drawing a killer Wolverine, that's described by the host of Fanboy Radio, followed by John Jr., who drew a brilliant Captain America. Finally, John Romita Sr. stepped up, drawing and producing not only a brilliant Spider-Man, but having him look like he was crawling up the wall and looking back at the restaurant. Reportedly, both Tan and John Jr. could be heard muttering, "Why didn't we think of that?" Even more, Romita Sr. asked for more from white paint as he thought he made a mistake that no one else could see. While just a few years ago, Romita Sr. still showed he had more than a few tricks up his sleeve to show the younger generation, who are still learning from him to this day, as no doubt they will far into the future. I would like to thank the chief source for this episode, Alter Ego Presents, John Romita and All That Jazz, by Roy Thomas and Jim Amash, which collects a series of great interviews of the legendary artist along with great reprints of his art. A must-read for any comic book fan. And now it is September 10th, 2020, time for the favorite comic book of the week. Strange Academy, number 2 by Scotty Young and Humberto Ramos, which continues the story of a bunch of new magic users in the Marvel Universe going to Doctor Strange's new academy, and as they meet the new faculty, which consists of many of the great magical Marvel characters, from Magic to Scarlet Witch, the Ancient One, and so forth, as they learn to use their powers, and also gets a little hints of maybe some darker things to come. Young has a great time establishing the school dynamics. Now, even though it's still a school, it's a little bit different than others. For instance, let's just say when Magic sends you to detention, it's on a whole different level than what we're used to detention when we were in school. And it's complemented perfectly by Roy Ramos' art, which is great. It has a cartoony, but also a magical, fantastical feel to it. So it's just a lot of fun from beginning to end. And this looks to be a little fun original series with some great new characters, mixing some great classic old Marvel characters. So a lot of fun. And, we're apparently not going to be getting a Harry Potter or anything comic book series anytime soon. So this is like the next best thing. Plus, if you're a Marvel fan, it's probably even better. And with that, hey, new history episodes. Yep, I finally refilled my bank, and we're going to be doing another series, at least 10 episodes so far. Of course, I'm still working on more episodes to come, and hopefully this season 3, as it now is, will be going for a little while. Hope I can keep up. Of course, holidays are coming up and so forth. But till then, enjoy these history episodes, and join me again next week, where I'll be doing the biography of the great Arthur Adams. Till then, go out and enjoy yourself a good comic book.